All right. Let's see. We can. Hey, everybody. Good day to everybody out there. We're going to do is run through a Reiki session today, and kind of give you guys an idea of how that works and what it looks like. And of course, everybody does it a little different. This will be my way of doing it, and just so you can kind of get an idea that it's not necessarily scary, dangerous, woo-woo, evil, or anything like that. This is just energy work, and in my case, it is intuitive as well. And so I have worked with this young lady a few times, so I kind of know her already. So we may not spend an entire hour with it, but we're going to kind of move through all the different chakras and different areas of the body and describe what I'm looking for, what we normally find, things like that. So, all right, are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I do before I do a session, or at least as soon as I start, is to really find out what their belief system is, so that I can speak the same language, right? Because everybody has a different name, a different way of interacting with God or the universe or whatever you would like to call that. So, in this case, since she's already on the table, I will ask her as I get started in the crown chakra. So I start at the top and I work my way down and then around the body, just like that. So, all right. And so I use a hands-off approach for the purposes of discovering what the chakra, the state of the chakra is in. And so for me, it's like the size of an old record. There's a thickness and a strength and a quality and all that. And then we can drive a conversation based on what I'm finding for the specific chakra or different area of the body, right? So, and so the crown chakra, I always tell people I'm going to explain the chakras in the different areas of the body as if they've never heard it before. Because what this young lady, I don't know if I'm using her name or not, but well, what Layla has experienced in her learning in Reiki may not be the same as mine, or somebody that comes in, they may have a different take on it. So I've been doing this for like 7 years or so kind of put some pieces together. Anyway, so for the crown chakra, it's more this way, and when we get up on the top of the body, it'll be this way, right, for me. And so usually here, this crown chakra to me is the connection with the source or God. And so this is where I like to decide on what term we're going to use, right? And so we'll use the universe today as our connection or our source. And so what I'm looking for is to see if I'm going all the way around the chakra to see if it's energetically firing all the way around. And then I'm also going to look to see how thick it is. And I'm going to see what the strength is. And so if it's really strong, it'll kind of push me away or make my hands tingle. And if it's accepting energy, it's almost like it's pulling my hands in, right? So in this case, this Leda here has it's wide open, it's very thick, and so I would expect that she has a good communication or an upload, if you will, conversation, intention up through to the source, universe in this case. And so I know her fairly well. I know she does. So, but this is actually really strong and really wide open, right? Some of the things I find here is one of the common things I find is that it's really strong in the center, but on the outsides, not so much, right? And so that could mean a couple different things, but it kind of is what starts the conversation. You know, do you have conversations with the source? Do you really reach out and communicate? And oftentimes I find that a lot of people don't, or they don't take the time to do it. But something centrally strong might also mean that they're limiting what they're asking for, or it could be that they're very specific. So it's just kind of nice to have a conversation, see what's going on, right? And so I know she's got a lot of cool new things happening, so I want to ask her. Okay, and so then I will move. I'm going to work from this side table so you can see me, right? Isn't it fun?
Mm-hmm. It is, I love it.
Right, and so then I'm going to come down to the third eye, which kind of sits in the middle of your forehead. And so this is the way I'll explain that. The pineal, the third eye is not just metaphorical. It is actually a small pea-sized gland that sits in the middle of your brain, same makeup as your eyes do, right? And so why would God or the universe or our source put something that can see inside of a dark space? Well, this is where our insight happens. This is where our intuition comes through. This is where our dreams, sleep-wake cycles, all that happen, right? And so this is also usually where I have conversations about dreams, right? And so see if people dream, because dreams are important. Dreams do mean something. They're very symbolic, and once you figure that out, you can figure out what the message is. Woo! This young lady gets a lot of stuff. Wow. Hers is wide open and very strong, right? Mm-hmm. What's interesting about Layla is it's very difficult for her to see that per se. It's easier for her to see that when she's sleeping, when she's working on it. Mm-hmm. You're trying to figure out what's going on there. So I do like to do some hands-on, and this is like super strong.
Super tingly.
And in this case, we have it's almost like it's pulsing underneath this hand right here. And so if I'm doing an entire session, say most sessions are about an hour, if I'm finding specific chakras that are really wide open and strong, I may not spend as much time. I may move on, because I'm sure we're going to find one that's not as good, right? And that's everybody. And so you got to remember though too that this is a snapshot in time. So if she goes out and has some lunch and or dinner, comes back, boom, it might be different, right? And so this is really good. Whew. Wow. Okay. And then of course, there's this throat chakra, right? And that's simply in the neck area. And this is one of the areas that I don't necessarily put my hands directly on, because it's kind of scary for you to kind of, especially people who have been through trauma, you don't want to put your hands on their neck, right? So there's other ways you can do that. There's other ways that you can, you might work from the backside, right? So same thing here. So the throat chakra is color blue, right, basically. And so it is about communication, authentic communication. And it's a healing center because the thyroid sits there, right? And so you got to remember that this is also not entirely spiritual or woo-woo. This is also very scientific. And so every area that we're going to look at has organs and major nerve centers in it. So this is like actually really strong and really thick. I think, well, I know her pretty well. I mean, she speaks her mind, right? And but I do feel like it's really weird. It's a little wavy in the center. So I feel like most of us, we have those places and times where, and people we can't necessarily communicate with. So this is not always 100%, which is okay. But a lot of times if I find like one side or the other that's not very strong, it will represent, for example, on the right side of the body, the present or now, and then on the left side, the past. And so that will kind of clue me into what it is she's not speaking her truth about, right? So for her, it's there's a little bit of uncertainty on the future, and sometimes situations in our life keep us, and sometimes it's us. There's a lot of reasons for that, but then we can also spur on a conversation about where we're going and what we're doing, right? So we won't go into that because we kind of we do that a lot already. So, all right. And so if you want to connect directly, hands-on, you can kind of come back here. I would not suggest putting your hands on your throat. Not a good idea. Now, if somebody's really adamant about it and they have a thyroid issue and they want you to do it, you can have a discussion about it and come to terms with that, right? But, woo! Holy snaky doodles. You are really working on that truth there, aren't you?
Working on it.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Very strong, very strong. And so what I find interesting is when you put your hands on somebody as a practitioner, at least for me, I feel like really strong warmth, really strong heat, but the client will feel the coldness of my hands, which is really strange. I haven't figured that part out yet. Okay, now we're coming to the heart chakra, right? So the heart chakra is represented by green, and it is about love and compassion and all the things you might imagine the heart chakra is about, right? So this is kind of looking at how you process love on a global scale, right? We're going to look at that, how well you receive or take love or accept love, right? Shortly. So I just kind of hover above, right? And so this is like, this is definitely pretty strong, right? Really thick. Once again, a lot of times what I find here is a very narrow strength, like centered, or all the energy seems to be happening in the center here and not on the outskirts, but the past or the present. So to me, that would represent things like, well, they're probably very selective about who they let in, which is not necessarily good or bad, but they're not just like giving love randomly to everybody. It's like very, very specific, right? And so once again, spurs on a conversation. But heart chakra is what connects your spiritual, your uppers, and your lowers, right? And so this is one of the most important chakras to me. If you have a few minutes to work with somebody, I would work here, right? Because this is what really connects in both parts of you. And whew, it feels like a little bit of a future, a little bit diminished, but overall pretty strong, right? And once again, if somebody really strongly feels like, or you feel like that there's a real need to do hands-on here, just ask, right? And so people that are really hurting in this area, they don't really care, but please ask, right? And so, but if you really want to do more hands-on in some of these areas that are not appropriate per se, you can have them on their belly as well, right? And so I've done that before. This is actually pretty good, pretty good. And so one of the other things you can do is that if you find a chakra that's super strong and you have one that's not very strong, you can also connect those chakras, which is kind of cool idea to do, right? And the next one is the solar plexus, which lies right up underneath there, just below the breastbone. It's represented by the color yellow. I call it your personal sun. All kinds of fun. So it's your energy center. This is your battery. Woo wee! Wow, you are a little Energizer Bunny today, aren't you? Right. So, but the key here is that this represents all levels of your energy expenditure. You know, your spiritual, your mental, your physical. All of it comes from here. So each day you hypothetically get a certain amount of energy to use, and I would be mindful. I would have the client be mindful of where they're spending their energy so that they can leave some for the meat suit, right? And so if you're worried about stuff that it really doesn't matter, it's not going to change anything, why spend the energy, right? So hers is actually really strong. Woo. She's got a young kid, so she don't have a choice. She has to be global, right? So anyway, some of the things I will find here is also a very narrow strength, and that to me represents somebody that really is purposely trying to control where their energy goes, or they're using it very specifically, right? And so none of this is bad or good. It's just kind of a way to assess and talk and have a conversation, right? And so what's really cool too is you can use this sort of like, if you look at this as the energy massage. If it's not strong on the outside, you can also kind of drag that energy across and move it around. I learned that from a student, actually. That's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Right. And so you can kind of move that around. And so what some people do too is, like at the end, I like to sweep away all the negative energy. But some people will find stuff that's not good necessarily, and they'll just kind of, pull that out and send it away. So there's just a lot of different options you can do, right? And so I like to do hands-on here, especially because I'm kind of looking at some of the major organs underneath. Never diagnose, but you may find some things. Like I look at how active their liver is, which is over here on the right side, right below, right up under the rib cage. And so it talks about what your body's processing and at all levels. And so you can see where they're at with that. This is very energetic. I know she's processing a lot, but somebody takes a lot of medications or drinks a lot, of course, well, you'll find stuff here right? So you want to maybe just kind of help them ascertain what's going on. And then I like to, the pancreas sits like just a little off center here on the left. And so I like to feel the energy there to see how much sweetness or love they're processing in your life, right? So I learned that from Dolores.
I know, that's awesome.
So that's what Dolores Cannon would say. We'll talk about her, but that people with diabetes really, they don't have enough sweetness in their life. They can't process love properly and all that. So the belly is not necessarily a chakra, but I like to assess that one because a very active abdomen really talks about somebody who's processing a lot of things, right? And so if you ever find yourself with a stomach ache, guess what? You may have to stop and reassess some of the things that go in your life, and maybe you're trying to do too much, right? Or things have become overwhelming. So you got to remember the body is talking to you. The subconscious mind will create messages within your body by bringing physical manifestations across. If you understand what each area means, you can go, oh, this is what I got to work on, right? And so the next one is lies at the belt line, basically. This is the sacral chakra. And so the sacral chakra houses your emotions and your sexual energy, kind of all lines together here. They would anyway, right? But so hers is like really global. You've been doing a lot of work lately, haven't you?
Yeah.
Wow. So I've had her in here before, and then sometimes it wasn't like this before. So some of these things, so you can usually tell if you have a repeat client that how well they're working on themselves, right? Or if they are, or if they have the same issues that they're trying to work through. So here we talked about the fact this is emotional and sexual altogether. So usually the center energy represents the sexual part of the person, and the outer bands are more of the emotional. But this one's all around. So if you feel a difference, you can kind of bring up that conversation. So what's going on in life, right? That kind of stuff, right? And what I usually find here a lot is that it's very centrally strong, once again, or that a lot of times that the past over here on the left is turned off, right? And so they're not really necessarily processing their past emotions, which most of us have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Me included, right? We're all there, we're all human, right? And so once again, underneath here lies the reproductive organs, and especially for the ladies, this is a really active area anyway, right? It's a little less active for the guys, but still similar. Very energetic on this future side, by the way. This lady trying to step into her thing. All right, and then the next one is the root chakra, which kind of lies over that sacred area we all have, right? And so once again, very, very important not to intrude on this space unless it's absolutely necessary. But there's some books out there to give you some hand placements ideas, but I'll give you one here in a minute. So this root chakra is really about your grounding to the earth, your connection to Mother Earth, because we are designed, the earth and us humans are designed to have the same frequency, to resonate together. Now, some of the stuff we're doing to the world may be affecting that, but in general, you connecting with the earth through getting your feet in the grass, getting your hands in the dirt, being out in nature, all that stuff, right? But some of us can't do that, so sometimes maybe wearing red, perhaps. And I had this one person that said, I don't like red. I think it invokes anger. I'm like, well, wear some undergarments that are red, or whatever. Hers is pretty strong, so she's really doing a lot of good root work, right? But one thing you can do here is you can kind of get your hands on the hips, and that's kind of like bracketing that area in the hands-on technique, right? And so, the right side over here is about the future, what you're holding on to, what kind of issues you're holding on presently, and on the left is more what you're holding on to from the past. So, if I had to assess this, I would say that the future issues about the future are more prominent for this young lady
Yeah, my right knee's been hurting lately.
than the past, right? And so, well, in a course that I took, I also, the author had an idea about the fact that sometimes we hold a lot of our past issues in our right hip because our conscious or subconscious doesn't want us to move forward until we resolve that, right? And so, once again, that'll segue us into the right leg, which it has to do with the future, right? Moving forward. So, I usually I assess hands off starting with the hip and the knee. And so, what I'm looking for, this is really about their idea of the future, you know, their plans, their thoughts, that kind of stuff, right? How much energy are they putting into their future? And so, the hip is more about near term, and knee is about long term, right? And so, and then I like to see, I kind of run across the energetic scope and see if they're the same energy. And I feel like what she's doing now is very related to what she wants to do down the road, right? And so sometimes this is disconnected, which means, you know, it's almost like they're in survival mode. It's like, what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to make, you know? So you kind of have to kind of get them dreaming again here, right? And say, where do you want to go? What do you want to do, right? So then a little hands-on never hurts there. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, we just had a conversation before we started, so I know. Yeah, I know she's trying to move into a new path and try new things, right? So a little bit almost off. Anyway, so then from the knee to the ankle or the foot, this is your willingness to step into that future, right? And so I do from the knee to the foot, and so the foot is literally that stepping off point, and then the knee would represent their ideas or whatever it is they're trying to instill. And once again, you can see if they're connected, but there's a little bit of disconnect between her ideas and her stepping out. But knowing her, I know her, it's a little bit situational right now. And so it may not be that they're just not willing, but maybe they're just not able to right now, right? Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with what you're finding, but once again, you can kind of bring that energy together. And a lot of times when you have a conversation with a client about an area that's not good, you can feel it grow underneath their hands, right? On my hands, sorry, right? And so normally I would come back around the table, but I'm not going to put my back to it. So I'm going to reach over. Not a good idea normally, right? Right. And so then on the left, right, this is about your past, their past, right? Their awareness of the past, things that have happened to them, stuff that they might be holding on to, right? More near term, recent, more long ago, right? At the knee. And so once again, you can see if they're interconnected. And I'd say somewhat connected, not entirely, but I feel like there's more going on in a recent past than long ago, or at least that's more important than what happened long ago. Right? And there's some connection with that, right? And so, a lot going on recently. Very tingly underneath my hands here, so now the past is not necessarily a bad thing. It's what we do with it, right? And so holding on to things that really don't matter really is not a good use of our energy. Now it happens to everybody, but so coming up with a process with, that's really warm. It's almost like, wow, it kind of comes to energy. So just for you, right? It comes down here, stops there, and then it's like, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna connect the dots to the past. Wow.
Like it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's,
or you've done some stuff with it, right? It's
yeah.
there, but
it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a cool place to be.
Yeah. Move past it.
Right. Now, forgetting the past is not gonna happen. It's gonna happen, right?
But just not letting it affect you.
Exactly. What are we gonna do with the emotions connected with that, right? All right. And so then the knee to the foot represents you willingness to do something about that, right? And so I feel like she's very willing, I feel like there's a little wavy perhaps. So it kind of represents to me that she's maybe not entirely sure how to do that, or she is not in a place to be able to do that. You know, so life gets in our way sometimes. So we could have all the willingness in the world, but sometimes, you know, you gotta work and eat and take care of family and all that, and so sometimes you have to put yourself on the back burner a little bit, but always remember yourself, right? And so, once again, it feels like it's like a little, like it's like hands-on part. It's like very connected, very strong to about right before the foot. Then it's like, yeah, I want to, but no, it's not bad, right? Okay, and so that would be that. And so let me go back to this area here. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure that the client's hands are on their sides. So now I could break the arms up similar to the legs, but I want to do a heart to hand connection. So on the right, the right side has to do with giving. How well you give, right? So what I want to do is look at the bridge between how well they give love, how well they give ordinary things. Helping people. Somebody calls you up, says I need help moving. Well, yeah, sure, right? In her case, I know she has a lot of family to take care of, so she's got a lot to give. Yeah, you give a lot. I think that's her nature anyway, right? So
Yes, it is. Nurture.
right, and so giving is a wonderful thing. I always remind people that they got to remember themselves too, because the battery's only so much, right? Sometimes it's difficult to figure out. So it feels like she gives a lot of ordinary things. I already know that about her, but her heart chakra is very limited. I think she gives love in a very specific or on purpose manner, right? She has a client, it's all in, then it's all out,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Right, and in relationships as well and all that, right? So one thing I find is if the heart chakra is just tore up from the floor up, even if I have a conversation, I had people that are going through nasty divorces, and I'll ask them, well, how did you meet? And you can feel that whole chakra grow, and sometimes just the conversation will help you raise their vibration, right? And so they are connected. So acts of service are also love to her, right?
Yes.
Oops. I'm doing this from the other side. Sorry, it's not the most wonderful habit to reach across, but so heart to hand over here. This is about her receiving, right? So receiving love is much stronger than her giving, which is
Different than last time.
yes, it is. Because before she was very limited, right? And so that's why I say if you have repeat clients, you can kind of measure their energy and let them know, hey, you are actually doing the work, and it's making a difference, right? It's really cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're like hugely different, and you're actually more willing to take help.
That was like a month ago.
Yeah, it was. Dude, I don't know what she's done, but it's very strong, right? So generally, men are takers and women are givers, but hey, that's how it is, right? All right, and so once I'm done with that, then I'm going to come down here to the ear chakras, not necessarily chakras, I guess, but what I'm trying to do is to assess how well she receives or hears spiritually about her past and her now or present or future. And so to me this actually feels pretty equal. I feel like you're entertaining a little bit of both. So balance is a good thing. It's not the only thing. Being balanced means you're not necessarily doing anything. So, but knowing where it is nice, so you can come back and reset, right? Now there you go. It's like weird. It's because it's like it's trying to compete. It's like no, yes, no. It's kind of changing into my hand. So I feel like there's a lot going on there. You're trying to compete with what's happened before and what you're trying to do. What it feels like. So anyway, if you want to, you can come in and you can do direct energy and wow, doodle. That's really strong. So she's getting a lot of information. Remember that you can connect with the spiritual world, the universe, God, in a lot of different ways. Some people do it through the third eye. Some people do it through their DNA. Some people do it through their heart chakra. Everybody has a different way. So nobody's built exactly the same, right? And then here on the shoulders is where you carry your current burdens. And so on the left side from the past, the right side from present or worrying about the future, if you will. And so does feel like the past is kind of pinging her a little bit more than now. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. It could be that things, as you evolve as a person, your past will like to sneak up and kind of blindside you. Remember me? So that may be what's going on. But the longer I stay here, the more they become equal. So, which is good. We can do hands-on here as well. So that's interesting. Usually I feel, when I connect directly, I usually feel more energy than hovering above, but this one is opposite. That's weird. I don't know what that means. So this is an ever-learning thing. This is one of the first times I've had this happen. So, but it could be that, you know, doing all this work it's kind of hard to figure out what you need to hold on to. You know, it's like a little sorting machine or a filing cabinet.
It's never ending.
You know, sometimes clients will help you learn, right? And so, anyway, so that's kind of the session. Then I'll come down here to the end. I don't know if you can see me by the feet. Let's see. You see me? Yeah. Okay. There we go. All right. And so usually what I'll do is, so I'll come in and put my hands on their feet, and so you can assess the feet if you want, and so you can also kind of look at the energy in between the 2 feet if you like, and so you can look at perhaps the battle between moving forward and dealing with your past. Wow, we got some good pulses. You're exercising?
No.
Whatever you're doing is good. I had one person that was doing a session on me and looked down between my feet and says, "You got an oasis here." I'm like, "Ooh, that's good or bad?"
Yeah, that sounds, I don't know.
I gotta think about that. And so here is where usually, as you'll notice, I talk my way through, and you know, I'm talking and walking you through, but that's my normal. I talk all the way through. Very seldom am I quiet, which is fine. You can do that. I think that's Layla's style, but not mine.
I'm trying to incorporate more of this.
So for me, like, she will write stuff down and she goes, me, I want to tell them when I get it. You know, that's just me. I don't want to remember a whole hour, but everybody has their own style. It's not all necessarily right or wrong, right? And so here as well, I actually stop talking and I'll say that we're going to do a little period of silence where she can incorporate her intentions into this session, to this energy thing, and with mine as well. We'll combine those, all right? I'm not going to tell her what her intention should be. And based on the session, I will have my own intentions to set for her as well. Power of 2, right? Power of 1 or more, right? And then what I'll do is then I'll close the session up. Everybody, I just stay down here to do it. Everybody has their own little kind of way of doing it. Some people will come back to the side. Some people will go, I don't know, there's just a lot of variety. Some people go back to the end. Personally, what I do is here is I take the energy and I'll kind of spin it up her limbs, through her torso, through her spine, her arms, and just kind of shoot it northward, this big bright golden light of energy, and I'll bring it back in and then I'll seal it up in a nice beautiful white light so she can enjoy this session for a few days. So that is my session.
Yep, awesome.
Let's see.